Hello. So, I think I'm not going to stand behind it, so I'm going to walk around a little bit. Hopefully you see me walk around, you don't get so hungry before lunch. So, what am I going to talk about today? So the topic here is branding the App Store, using this untouched channel to position your brand. What I'm hoping everybody that walks out today is that you will realize that the App Store could be a very, very interesting channel to test positioning of your brand, at the same time also grow organically. So remember this little quote, and let's start a little bit about me. So a little bit more about me. As Liz was very kind to introduce myself, I want to share a little bit about my background. So I have more than 10 years of experience in telecommunications. What I've done, I was also an engineer before. I did product management and partnerships for big groups of telecommunication in Asia as well as Europe. And now I work for a startup called Clue, which I'll explain what they do later on. And I do basically everything. So product management, growth, digital marketing, whatever they need me to do, I'll do it for them. So I want to set the expectation. So this presentation will be in 3 parts. So I'll talk a little bit about Clue. I'll introduce the concept of App Store optimization, which I will say ASO from time to time. And finally, we'll talk about how we can use ASO as well as branding. So the introduction of Clue. Clue is the #1 rated female health app in the Journal of OBGYN. And as we were introduced, we have more than 5 million active users, but we have more than 20 million downloads across both the app stores. And we are founded in 2012, so it's been almost 4 years that we are around. 5 years that we are around. And our long-term vision is to help people around the world benefit from insights to female health. We use science and data to make different predictions to the cycle, and hopefully whatever you tell Clue, we are able to provide smart insights to your body and health. This is a little sneak peek of how Clue looks like. On the left, this is basically how we make predictions. The different parts of the cycle, from period, from the fertile window, deciding whether you want to get pregnant or not. You can decide what you want to do during your ovulation day. And finally, if you have PMS. And we allow users to track up to more than 30 different tracking categories. All of them are backed by science. And finally, the other half of the audience who are having female partners. If you want to be part of this, basically, whoever who's using Clue, you can also share them with your partners, friends, or family, and basically you can see what are the different part of the phases of the cycle they are in. Whether you need to buy them some chocolates, or cheer them up, or take them out for a date. Okay, App Store optimization. I hope everybody is doing fine. So before I go into the details of App Store optimization, first, I want to say something about the App Store. The App Store has been here for a long, long time. And it started off as a platform for developers to publish their app. And where you get the installs, where you get the downloads, you go figure out where to get them. But as over time, the App Store realized that they also have a lot of information. And they figured out that if they made the App Store more beautiful, more discoverable, more searchable, more segmented, they can actually encourage people to come and use the App Store as a channel to actually search. And that kind of triggered this whole idea of App Store optimization, ASO. So by definition, how I describe App Store optimization, it is how do you make your app storefront most appealing to the user. So everybody comes from different channels, whether paid marketing, organic growth, wherever channels that you're trying to acquire users. The App Store is basically the last part of the funnel. If you've already spent that amount of money trying to get the users to the page, why not make sure that very last mile becomes the most important part? Make sure that you are communicating the right thing to your users. So how to make your app storefront most appealing to the users to click that download button. And then, of course, if you're doing this very well, Apple and Google normally will realize this as well, and so then it becomes relevant for them to feature you make you more prominent in the App Store because they know that, hey, if the users like you, we should make you more visible. So that's App Store optimization in a nutshell. And then you must be wondering, okay, so I talk about making the last mile more interesting, making it wanting to create visibility with Apple and Google, but then what can you really do? So this is the Google Play page for Clue. If you look at it, if you look at your app, it's the same. It's the same as everybody else, the same kind of assets, the same kind of, basically the same kind of structure. But what I hope for you to learn is that there's a lot of different things you can play around with. So what is in your toolbox? For discovery, as I mentioned, what is important for discovery? The badges. The reason why Apple and Google start providing badges is because it helps people make that decision, hey, if you have this badge, or if you have this 10 million downloads, hey, that's quite a lot of people downloading the app. I think they could be pretty interesting. Second thing, keywords. If somebody is already in the App Store and looking for something else, they might be looking for something specific, or they might be looking for something very broad. So understanding what kind of keywords that appeal to your user base is also really, really important. So this is the keyword part. So things like the name itself, Clue, we call it Clue Period Tracker, but when I introduce Clue, we said we are a female health app. But in the App Store, does people understand what female health app is? They'll be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm a diabetic app, maybe I'm a fitness app, maybe I'm a diet app. Nobody knows. But when they are at the store, we clearly communicate that we are a tracker, because this is what we know that people are looking for in the App Store. Downloads. The header, Clue, rated #1 by OBGYN. This is something that we wanted to test, and we realized that this image is the best performing one. And this, basically the header takes 1/3 of the screen, so don't disregard this real estate. And the second thing, the icon. A lot of people kind of disregard, like, icon is just, the identity of the app, but the thing is, how the icon looks like, how it is being highlighted in the App Store makes a difference as well. Whether is it thicker in color or the background is darker, all of them matters. Screenshots. I don't want to dive so much here into screenshots because there will be an example after this. But screenshots are important because people like looking at beautiful things, right? And rating and reviews, you can see. Rating and reviews, there is a 4.6 stars here, rated by more than 175 users. What does that mean? It means that when somebody who looks at Clue and they have no idea what Clue is, they said, hey, people think it's pretty good. They've thought that it's worth 4.5 stars, and there's a lot of people that want to share this love. So that's an important point. So don't disregard ratings and reviews. And finally, the app name, as I mentioned earlier, and you also have the long and short descriptions that you shouldn't forget about. So all of these things here are basically really important and things that you can optimize over time. You can test them. Google allows you to A/B test many of all these different assets one by one to figure out what makes sense, what works, what doesn't work. It is important to know that, hey, maybe sometimes some of the experiments fail, but it's better to know this does not work for my users, or this works for my users. So, like I said, I promise I wanted to dive in a little bit more with screenshots. Like I said, people like looking at beautiful things. At Clue, we did a user research earlier this year, and we asked people to look at our app stores. And I would assume, more than 80% of them did not read the description. They look at the images, but the first thing they did was go to the screenshot. So that is such an important behavior to note. So screenshot matters. So I'd like to play a little game with the audience here. Here, this is a very simple screenshot of Clue. So there's no tricks here, very simple. The tagline here is, know when your next period is coming. All the images are the same. The only thing that is different, and it's not even related to branding here, is the phone color. The phone color, it's very subtle. And if you think when we use the same kind of phone color, throughout the screenshots, you almost don't even notice it. But now I'm putting the two different colors. So let's play a little game. So who thinks that the white phone color did better? Well, that's quite a lot of people, 70%. Black? I'm guessing the rest. So no surprise. I guess maybe on this screen it's pretty obvious. No surprise. The white phone color performed almost 15% better conversion than the black one. Both are equally beautiful. Look at them. They are not any less beautiful than each other, but just by the phone color itself, we generated more than 15% of additional download. So imagine if you were to try different things, more subtle things, you might even get better results. And as I mentioned, ratings. It's probably, I want to mention this again and highlight this is because ratings is probably the most easiest method to generate trust from your users. Like I said, if 100,000 of people said, we rate this app 5 stars, there must be some truth into that. I can't remember the last time I went to a restaurant and not look at Google Maps and see what's the rating of the restaurant. So think about it that way. And so just to recap a little bit of this section before we go to the highlight is, so then you think, okay, I've talked about all these assets, so what can you really do with all these learnings if you were to try all these different A/B tests and all these different changes? One, you can inform your paid marketing team. You can share as well with what you learn to have a coherent storyline when you're paying for your installs. When the users that come from different channels see the same kind of proposition, chances are they are like, hey, this company has it together. They are talking the same language. When they're selling something to me, I see it the same way as well in the App Store. Branding. You can also test branding, and which we'll talk about later. And new market entry, the App Store. You can localize it in many, many different languages. You can choose to change the description when you're localizing it to different languages. So it's a really, really interesting way when you're testing a new market entry. So coming to the fun part today, branding and ASO. So before I get into that, I hope that there's no question marks in the audience that might be, why branding and ASO? So I just want to recap a little bit. Why? It is really it's just an available resource. It's an interesting playground to test multiple brand positioning. It costs you no money. It's easy, and like I mentioned, it's an opportunity to test localized positioning. A lot of brand positioning, when you are going into a new market, you already have a big brand positioning, and you don't want to jeopardize your local brand positioning. So App Store optimization or ASO is a chance for you to be able to test localized positioning without jeopardizing the big brand positioning. It's really low risk. You can iterate as many times as possible. Something that doesn't work, stop it, change it, try something else again. And like I said it the third time again, it really doesn't influence so much of your core branding. What I like most is it's measurable. Sometimes, of course, there's a lot of discussion about how do you measure the success of TV ads, an U-Bahn ad. How do you know all this above-the-line marketing is working? With ASO, at least it is measurable. So if you're testing something on a very small scale, you have results, you can take that back to the team and decide if you want to spend more money on your big branding activities. And like I said, it's really quick. So I kind of came up with a 6-step how to do it tutorial a little bit, and I hope that you find this interesting. So these are the 6 steps. I will try to quickly put it here. These are the 6 steps. You can digest it a little bit for 10 seconds. What I will do here in the next slides is I will run through each of the steps with some of the clue examples as well. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Step 1, determine the brand positioning you want to test. So the easiest thing is, first of all, you can think about what kind of brand positioning you want to test. Is it about becoming more viral? Do you want to appeal to a specific segment? Do you want to, whatever that comes into your mind, think a little bit about it. Or it could just be about validating the current brand positioning in a certain market. you've been there for a long time, you've been using this brand positioning, you're thinking, hey, maybe I want to try something a little bit out of the ordinary, out of the box, but then I don't want to jeopardize a lot of different things. You can think about it that way as well. So for Clue, we were thinking about multiple brand positionings. We said we can talk about diversity, we can talk about education, we can talk about female empowerment, we can talk about reproductive health, we can talk about trust. All of this are core values of the Clue brand, but all of these are very, very different areas. And we said, hey, we think trust is very important because when it comes to the App Store, it's about creating trust. Because we are, after all, a health company. People who use us need to know that they trust the information that we provide. So we said, how can we strengthen trust? And we want to use the App Store to test this. So then, once we decided that we want to test, how can we have a brand positioning which is focused on trust and which one will work the most, we thought of different storylines that is tied to trust. And like I said, the App Store has multiple opportunities of A/B testing, so brainstorm about the 10 different things that you can do with regards to that topic that you're thinking about. And there's multiple ways. You can ask your current users, hey, what do you think our brand, what do you feel about this particular area of the brand? You can ask people who've never heard about you, or you can also look at your competition aside brainstorming internally. And for Clue, we asked ourselves this question and we came out with 3 things. The first one was we said that highlighting our scientific partnerships with the universities we have is a good way to build trust. We said we have collaboration with Oxford, Stanford, and a lot of other partners. We said, hey, that's a good way to tell our users we have this collaboration. These educational institutes trust us to work with us. Our users should trust us as well. And then the second one is trusted by doctors, because we said we're the #1 female health app, but the Journal of OBGYN, so doctors do trust us as well. And the third thing, we are used by a lot of women. So we said that we used these 3 propositions and we said, let's go and test it out. And before you can test it out, you need to figure out where you want to test it as well. So a pro tip here, normally what we do with testing in the store is usually, if it's a new market entry, it's easy, you pick that new market, but you also want to minimize risk. Example, if you want to test a brand positioning for the US, you might want to start the test in Canada first to just see how the market reaction is. Or you want to test in Colombia before you test in Mexico because it's a very, very big market. Or you can also test on the actual market itself, but be very, very careful to limit the test so that, if any adverse effect, that will not be detrimental. So for us, we selected US. So US is our biggest market, and since we know how to segment it into a smaller category, we said, let's just go for it. And so now we are building up to the test, right? So first we decided it's trust. We've decided we will test in the US, and here then, the next thing we have to decide is, what do you want to test? We can test everything, but does it make sense to test everything? And the toolbox initially I was sharing, that is all the everything that you can test. So we were thinking, okay, what is most relevant to test trust and for Clue? And we said we will do it with the screenshots because that is what people see first, and that will be very, very interesting. So here again, small commercial break. Hopefully everybody is not starving yet. 3 brand value proposition that we said that to create trust, which is the collaboration with the universities, trusted by doctors, used by millions of women. And so we came up with 3 different kind of designs. These are very tied to the brand. If you go to the Clue website and you see a lot of our visuals, these are very, very brand aligned. And so we said that 3 propositions we will test across these 3 visuals. Do you want to play the game again? So look at the screens. So who thought that the version 1 won the game of branding? Only 5 people. What about version 2? More, about 20%. And the third one, the green one, About 50%. Somebody is laughing. So I'm not sure whether it's obvious or not, but for us, when we started off, we really didn't know which one will work. And we didn't know which positioning will match. Basically, we are trying to match the positioning and the image together, which one works the very best. So I would say that I have a very smart audience. Everybody knows. Yeah, the version 3 actually won by more than 25% of uplift of downloads. So if there's something that we've learned, understanding what kind of brand positioning you want to test, along with the visuals and support with the app, what the App Store can do for you, can drive a lot more downloads. So the third one, it was a little bit of a surprising thing because I thought it was a little bit boring. But this is something that we also highlight in the more scientific sense. So the one that actually won with the text is actually the official research partner of Oxford, Stanford, and Columbia with the green color. 25% additional downloads. And we figured out which kind of images should we use and what kind of value proposition should we sell as well. And like I said, that's A/B testing, so I don't want to go into too much details, but yeah, always think of how you want to structure the A/B test. Like for me, I was a little bit greedy. I want to have 3 sets of visuals. I want to have 3 sets of messaging, but you can also start with 1, or you can start with 2. So just be clear what you want to test and what you want to achieve at the very end of the day. And with A/B tests, as everybody knows, patience is golden. Sometimes you get some results very, very quickly because the numbers come in very quick, but sometimes you just need to wait a little bit more time before you get something significant. Right now, a big disclaimer, and I don't want people coming in the Q&A asking me, oh, but where do you do your A/B testing? So A/B testing right now is available only on Google Play. And so what we usually do is we do a lot of the A/B testing on Google, and then we port it to iOS later on, because then it really reduces significantly the risk of testing multiple things. And yeah, at the end, this is my last slide, and I said, wait, get the results, evaluate, and implement it, and think of other kind of iterations, and finally port to iOS. So that's kind of my 6 steps of how you can test branding. But the thing is, these 6 steps can be used for any other things, like I mentioned, paid marketing as well. So however application you want to use for ASO, there's multiple things you can do with them. So final recap. I don't know, I hope I'm not over time. Final recap, I hope you've learned a little bit more about Clue. So for the female out there, please download. We are Clue. I hope you've learned a little bit more about App Store optimization and its application with branding. And have a good lunch.